Broadcasting to you from somewhere deep in the heart of Texas. Once again, it's me, Honey Ann. Hi. We're going to delve into the book of Ecclesiastes for a little bit today. First, I want to start out by saying there is this man, Mr. Jones, and he's driving past the state mental hospital. And when his left rear tire suffers flat, and while Mr. Jones is changing, the tire, another car goes by, running over the hubcap in which Mr. Jones was keeping the lug nuts. And the nuts are all knocked into a nearby storm drain. So Mr. Jones is at a loss for what to do, and he's about to go call a cab when he hears a shout, basically from, behind the hospital fence. One of the inmates has been watching the whole thing take place. Hey, pal, why don't you just take one lug nut off of each of the other three wheels? That'll hold your tires on until you can get to a garage or something. And Mr. Jones, is startled by the patient's seeming rationality, but realizes the plan will work and installs the spare tire without incident. And before he leaves, he calls back to the patient. That was pretty sharp thinking. Why do they have you in there? And the patient smiles and says, I'm in here because I'm crazy, not because I'm stupid. Hey, Roots. Actually, a fool is not crazy. So he's responsible for his temperament, his tongue and talents, his actions, his attitude and his abilities, his walk, and his word and work. So what is a fool? How is he different from a wise man? And why is it important for a fool to correct and change, one's foolish ways? I mean, be intelligent, not impatient, right? Yeah. So, in Ecclesiastes, it's as dead flies give perfume a bad smell, so a little folly outweighs wisdom and honor. The heart of the wise inclines to the right, but the heart of the fool to the left. Even as fools walk along the road, they lack sense and show everyone how stupid they are. So if a ruler's anger rises against you, do not leave your post. Calmness can lay great offenses to rest. There's an evil, I've seen under the sun, the sort of error that arises from a ruler. Fools are put in many high positions, while the rich occupy the low ones. I have seen slaves on horseback while princes go on foot like slaves. Whoever digs a pit may fall into it, and whoever breaks through a wall may be bitten by a snake, and whoever quarries stones may be injured by them. Whoever splits logs may be endangered by them. If the axe is dull and its edge unsharpened, more strength is needed, but skill will bring success. Yesterday I had a neighbor who told me this hilarious story of her 3-year-old daughter's first year enrollment test for an elite kindergarten, a few years ago. And nervously, they waited for their turn at the interview. And when the daughter's name was called, she was faced, with a barrage of tests. And the first one was to say 1 to 10 in English, which was not a problem to her. The alphabets, were much tougher to identify, almost, failing in one alphabet. And all was good and fine. And then as they waited, for the official reply, they were called in as they heard the official answer. A teacher told the parents, is your daughter passing the exam, but we still cannot accept her because she was not still enough. So these elite schools prefer to choose a quieter student to uphold their brand and promote an image. Mm-hmm. The word foolish, it occurs an astonishing 9 times in 4 different Hebrew words in chapter. And the first 3 verses, they contrasted the 2 words foolishness and wisdom. A little folly is contrasted to bad ointment or stinking savor. And the verb is a bad smell. And it's also translated as stink in Genesis 34:30, to be abhorred in Exodus 5:21, an abomination in 1 Samuel 13:4, and loathsome in Proverbs 13:5. So think skunk, you know, armpits. The odor is unbelievable, unbearable, and unbecoming. Yeah. So verse 3 talks about a fool's walking and talking. Walking is direction, and talking is self-disclosure. So there's no way to disguise, deflect, or defer his walk and his words. It's his posture and presentation and personality. You know, so we have the ruler of verse 5. He's more than governor. And it talks about mighty, and it implies abandoning and avoiding and not attending or arresting the situation. So you've got to face or forbear or fix it. The ruler is nothing more than governor, mighty man, and ruler. And it says here, it's translated as alone, withhold, cast down, abandoning and avoiding, not attending or arresting the situation. Okay. So, just 1 second. Let me get past all these meanings of the words. Getting to the meat and potatoes of this. Okay. Okay, just a minute. Okay, I'm gonna get past this part. Okay, move on over to this one. So this is going to be, let's see here, just 1 second. I'll make sure I don't have my notes all mixed up. Okay, so Ecclesiastes 1. The words of the preacher, the son of David, King Jerusalem Solomon. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities. All is vanity. This is a famous passage. In other words, is life worth it? So what advantage does man have in all his work, which he does under the sun? Because of Adam and Eve's sin, we have to work. But it gives us meaning and purpose. Businesses, mission is a current phrase. So a generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. Revelation shows it will be changed. Also, the sun rises and the sun sets, and hastening to its place, it rises there again, blowing toward the south, then turning toward the north. The wind continues swirling along, and on its circular courses the wind returns. So all the rivers flow into the sea, yet the sea is not full. To the place where the rivers flow, there they flow again. So all things are wearisome, and man is not able to tell it. And the eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor is the ear filled with hearing. We're never happy. We want more. And that which has been is that which will be, and that which has been done is what which will be done. So there is nothing new under the sun. We sometimes think things are new, and they aren't to God, so nothing surprises Him. I mean, is there anything of which one might say, see this, it is new? Already it has existed for ages, which were before us. There is no remembrance of earlier things, and also of the later things which will occur. There will be for them no remembrance among those who will come. Later still, it's important for us to study history and to learn, from the past. So we have the futility of wisdom. The preacher has been king over Israel in Jerusalem, and I set my mind to seek and explore by wisdom concerning all that has been done under heaven. And it is a grievous task which God has given to the sons of men to be afflicted with leadership, has its perk, but it's also challenging. I have seen all the works which have been done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and striving after wind. So what is crooked cannot be straightened, and what is lacking cannot be counted. Crooks can change because of Jesus. Now I said to myself, behold, I have magnified and increased them more than all who were over Jerusalem before me. And my mind has observed a wealth of wisdom and knowledge. Solomon asked for wisdom, 1 Kings 3, cut the baby in half, but he didn't have wisdom with 700 wives and 300 concubines. And I set my mind to know wisdom and to know madness and folly, and realize that this also is striving after wind, because in much wisdom there is much grief, and increasing knowledge results in increasing pain. The more we know, the more we may realize we don't know or should have done. I've regretted some things and I've done, and it may not be until heaven that I realize why God allowed some things to happen, if at all, right? So I'm over here on 2:1. I said to myself, come now, I will test you with pleasure. So enjoy yourself, and behold, it was too futility. Pleasure is fun for a season. So I said, laughter, it is madness, and of pleasure, what does it accomplish? And I explored with my mind how to stimulate my body with wine while my mind was guiding me wisely, and how to take hold of folly until I could see what good there is for the sons of men to do under heaven the few years of their lives. I enlarged my works, and I built houses for myself. I planted vineyards for myself. I made gardens and parks for myself, and I planted them all kinds of fruit trees. I made ponds of water for myself, for which to irrigate a forest of growing trees. I bought male and female slaves, and I had homeborn slaves. Also, I possessed flocks and herds larger than who preceded me in Jerusalem. This was okay then and questionable now. Also, I collected for myself silver and gold, and the treasure of kings and provinces. I provided for myself male and female singers, and the pleasures of men, many concubines, 300. Then I became great and increased more than all who preceded me in Jerusalem. My wisdom also stood by me. All that my eyes desired, I did not refuse them. I did not withhold my heart from any pleasure, for my heart was pleased because of all of my labor, and this was my reward for all my labor. His heart was pleased. Thus considered all my activities which my hands had done, and the labor which I had exerted. And behold, all was vanity, and striving after wind, and there was no profit under the sun. So he did not see the benefits of doing what he did. Wisdom excels folly. So I turned to consider wisdom, madness, and folly. For what will the man do who will come after the king, except what he has already been done? And I saw the wisdom excels folly as light excels darkness. So the wise man's eyes are in his head, but the fool walks in darkness. And yet I know that one fate befalls them both. Then I said to myself, as is the fate of the fool, it will also befall me. Why then have I been extremely wise? So I said to myself, this too is vanity. Wisdom can fail. For there is no lasting remembrance of the wise man as with the fool, inasmuch as in the coming days all will be forgotten, and how the wise man and the fool alike die. So I hated life, for the work which had been done under the sun was grievous to me, because everything is futility and striving after wind. So we have to be careful if we hate our life. We may need to change what we're doing. So here it talks about the futility of labor. Thus I hated all the fruit of my labor, for which I had labored under the sun, for I must leave it to the man who will come after me, who is our fruit. And who knows whether he will be a wise man or a fool, yet he will have control of master. Therefore, I completely despaired of all the fruit of my labor, for which I had labored in the sun. When there is a man who has labored with wisdom, knowledge, and skill, he gives his lesson to one who has not labored with them. This too is vanity and a great evil.
Yeah, there is two moons up there.
Sorry. Okay. Here we go. For what does a man get in all his labor and in his striving with which he labors under the sun? Because all his days his task is painful and grievous. Even at night his mind does not rest. This too is vanity. If our mind races, try prayer or worship. So there's nothing better for a man than to eat and drink and tell himself that his labor is good. This also I have seen, that it is from the hand of God. Eat, drink, and be merry. For who can eat and who can have enjoyment without him? Amen. You know, this is 26. For a person who is good in his sight, he has given wisdom and knowledge and joy, while to the sinner he has given the task of gathering and collecting, so that he may give to one who is good in God's sight. And this too is vanity and striving after wind. Okay. So there's a time for everything. That's a famous passage. Ecclesiastes 2:24 cause his soul to seek good in his labor. So there's an appointed time for everything, and there's a time for every thing under heaven. A time to give birth and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear to build up, a time to shine and rest, a time to serve, a time to keep it and a time to roll away, a time to tear apart and a time to sew together, a time to be silent, time to love, time to hate. A time for war and a time for peace. I mean, what profit is there to be worker from that in which we toil? I've seen the task with which God has given the sons of men and in which to occupy themselves. God set eternity in the heart of man. He's made everything appropriate in its time. And he's also set eternity in their heart, yet so that man will not find out the work which God has done from the beginning even to the end. So I know that there is nothing better for them than to rejoice and to do good in one's lifetime. Moreover, that every man who eats and drinks sees good in all his labor. It is the gift of God. So we need to be thankful for every day. We don't know, about our last one. We've lost several, things here. I know that, everything God does will remain forever. And there's nothing to add to it, and there's nothing to take from it. For God has also worked that man should, fear him. So, we need to fear the Lord, but that fear of the Lord is gaining a respect for him and a love for him. We want to know that we're right with Christ. Another word is awe. Are we in awe of the Lord? That which has been already and that which will be has already been. For God seeks what has passed by. And furthermore, I've seen the Son that in the place of justice there is wickedness. In the place of righteousness there is wickedness. So I said to myself, God will judge both the righteous man and the wicked man for a time, for every matter, and for every deed is there. Okay. So I said to myself concerning the sons of men, God has surely tested them in order for them to see that they are but beasts. We may revert to our sinful nature. For the fate of the sons of men and the fate of beasts is the same. As one dies, so dies the other. Indeed, they have the same breath, and there is no advantage for man or beast. For all is vanity. Man has a soul, beast do not. I believe, our pets will be in heaven. I'll go to the same place, and I'll come from the dust, and I'll return to the dust. So this may be where, that Kansas song "Dust in the Wind" originated. You never know. sometimes it's used for Ash Wednesday. I'm not Catholic, but I've sometimes seen this. So 21 says, "Who knows that the breath of man ascends upward, and the breath of beast descends downward to the earth? I have seen that nothing is better than that man should be happy in his activities, for that in his lot, for who will bring him to see what will occur after him?" So this is for one. "Then I looked again at all the acts of oppression which were being done under the sun, and behold, I saw the tears of the oppressed, and that they had no one to comfort them. And on the side of their oppressors was power, but they had no one to comfort them. So I congratulated the dead who are already dead more than living who are still living." Strange. "But better off than both of them is the one who has never existed, who has never seen the evil activity that is done under the sun. I have seen that every labor and every skill which is done is the result of rivalry between a man and his neighbor. This too is vanity and striving after wind. The fool folds his hands and consumes his own flesh. One handful of rest is better than two fists full of labor and striving after wind." Then I looked again at vanity under the sun. There was a certain man without a dependent, having neither a son nor a brother, yet there was no end to all his labor. Indeed, his eyes were not satisfied with riches, and he never asked, "And for whom am I laboring and depriving myself of pleasure?" This too is vanity, and it is a grievous task. Two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. This is a wise statement. For if either of them fails, the one will lift up his companion. But the woe to the one who fails when there is not another to lift him up. Furthermore, if two lie down together, they keep warm. But how can one be warm alone? Genesis 2:18. It's not good for a man to be alone. And if one can overpower him, two can resist him. A cord of three strands is not quickly torn apart. Some say Christ has to be in relationships for it to be strong. And a poor yet wise lad is better than an old and foolish king who no longer knows how to receive instruction. For he has come out of prison to become king, even though he was born poor in his kingdom. I have seen all the living under the sun throng to the side of the second lad who replaces him. So there's no end to all the people and to all who were before them, and even the ones who will come out later will not be happy with them. For this too is vanity and striving after the wind. All right, I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna go ahead and stop now, and I'll come back and pick it up probably tomorrow. The next one's gonna be 5:1, Ecclesiastes 5:1. It's attitude towards God and money. All right. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you soon. Thank you. Look at my grandchildren. Here they come. A rainbow of colors. It's my grandbabies. Don't know how that got in there. Anyway, all right, guys. I'll see you on the next. Thank you.